Hello everyone and welcome back to Old Man Stories. I'm aware that many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you doze off, I thought it would be a fun idea if each of you could leave a comment letting me know which part of the world you're listening from. Also, give a like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the episodes, okay? Let's get comfortable, relax, and begin. I was walking on this mountain path, the kind you'd see in old hiking photos. Narrow, rocky, with pine trees crowding in on both sides. The air smelled damp, like rain had just fallen, and the ground was soft under my boots. I could feel every pebble through the soles, and my legs ached a little, like I'd been climbing for hours. The light was weird too, not quite day, not quite night, just this grayish haze that made everything look washed out. I wasn't alone, though. There were people with me, folks I recognized from way back. My granddad, who passed away when I was a kid, was there, walking beside me like it was the most normal thing in the world. He had on his old flannel shirt, the red one with the frayed cuffs, and he was smiling at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. There were others, too, a cousin I hadn't seen in years, a friend from high school who died in a car crash a decade ago. All of them just walking along, not saying much, but their presence was heavy, like a weight on my chest. We kept moving, and after a while I realized something was off. No one was talking, but I could feel this understanding settle over us, like we all knew something I didn't. Then without anyone saying a word, it hit me. We were all gone. Not dead, exactly, but not here anymore. It was like we were shadows of ourselves, walking through a place that wasn't meant for the living. The path started to slope downward, and up ahead I saw lights flickering through the trees. As we got closer, I realized it was a graveyard, but not like any I'd ever seen. It was lit by these old-fashioned lanterns hanging from low branches, casting long, dancing shadows over the headstones. The air got colder, and I could see my breath misting in front of me. My heart was pounding, not from exertion, but from this deep, creeping dread that was building inside me. We walked into the graveyard, and the others sort of drifted away, melting into the shadows between the stones. I was left alone, standing in front of one particular grave. The stone was dark grey, weathered-looking, with moss growing at the base, and there, carved into it, was my name. I leaned in closer, my fingers brushing against the cold, rough surface, and I saw the date, 2080. I just stared at it, my mind reeling. 2080. That's years from now. I'm not even that old yet, but seeing it there in stone made my stomach twist into knots. I remember feeling this cold sweat break out on my forehead, and my hands started to shake. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. That's when I woke up, suddenly, violently, like someone had shoved me out of sleep. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs, and fumbled for my phone on the nightstand. The screen glowed bright in the dark room, and the time read 2:13 in the morning. 2:13. The numbers seemed to burn into my eyes. I was breathing hard, my pajamas sticking to my skin with sweat, and the room felt too quiet, too still. Outside, the wind was rustling the trees, but inside, it was just me and the echo of that dream. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just a nightmare, but the image of that gravestone was stuck in my head, clear as day. I got up, my legs wobbly, and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. The floor was cold under my bare feet, and the faucet dripped in that annoying way it always does. I drank the water, but it didn't help. My throat still felt dry, tight. I kept glancing around the apartment, half expecting to see something out of place, but everything was normal. My couch was there, the TV was off, my keys were on the counter where I left them. Normal, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like the dream had left a stain on reality, something I couldn't wash away. After a few minutes, I went back to bed, lying down and staring at the ceiling. I thought if I just closed my eyes, I'd fall asleep and forget about it. But the moment I drifted off, it happened again. I was back on that mountain path, same as before. The air was still damp, the trees still looming, but this time I was alone. No granddad, no cousin, no one. Just me and the path, winding ahead into the gloom. My heart started racing again, and I could feel that same dread creeping up my spine. I didn't want to be there, but I had no control. It was like I was being pulled along by some unseen force. Up ahead I saw a bridge, one of those old wooden ones you see in forests, with railings that looked like they might give way any second. It spanned a narrow stream, and the water below was dark, almost black, gurgling softly. I hesitated, my feet freezing on the path. Every instinct was telling me not to cross, but I couldn't stop myself. I took a step onto the bridge, and the wood creaked under my weight, sending a shiver through me. Halfway across, I looked down at the stream, and for a second I thought I saw faces in the water, pale, blurred, like the people from before. I jerked my head up, my breath catching, and kept moving. On the other side, the path opened up into a small clearing, and there it was. Another gravestone, similar to the one from before, but smaller, more worn. I walked up to it, my legs feeling like lead, and saw my name carved into it again. This time there was no date, just my name, etched deep into the stone. I reached out to touch it, and my fingers came away cold and numb. That's when I heard it, the wind, whispering through the pines. It wasn't just wind, though. It sounded like voices, soft and indistinct, saying things I couldn't quite make out. But one word stood out, clear as a bell. Soon. It was barely a whisper, but it echoed in my head, and I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. I woke up again, gasping, back in my bed. The room was still dark, but the first hints of dawn were starting to show through the window. I lay there for what felt like hours, just staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. That dream, the gravestones, the whisper, it all felt too real, too specific. I've had scary dreams before, but nothing that left me feeling this unsettled, this raw. Even now, as I'm typing this, my hands are still a little shaky, and every time the wind picks up outside, I flinch, remembering that whisper through the pines. I don't know what it means, if it means anything at all, but I can't shake the feeling that something's coming, and I have no idea how to prepare for it. And story 2. Seti, I still don't know how to talk about what happened that day without my hands shaking, but I need to get it out somewhere. Maybe writing it down will help, or maybe it'll just make it feel more real. Either way, here goes. I've been planning this trip to Manchester for weeks. My friend, let's just call him my friend since names don't matter here, had moved into this old house a few months back. He'd talked it up like it was some kind of fixer-upper dream, but when I got there, the place felt off right from the start. It was one of those tall, narrow brick houses you see in parts of the city, with peeling paint and windows that looked like they hadn't been cleaned in years. The air outside was damp and chilly, typical for Manchester, but inside it was even colder, like the walls were holding onto the cold from last winter. He'd converted a storeroom into a guest room for me, which sounded cozy in his texts, but in person it was just a small, windowless space off the kitchen. The walls were bare except for some old shelving he hadn't bothered to take down, and the floor was this uneven wooden boards that creaked if you so much as shifted your weight. He'd thrown a mattress on the floor and called it a bed, and I remember thinking, well, it's just for a couple of nights, how bad could it be? The first few hours were fine. We hung out in the living room, catching up, and a couple of his other friends came over. We ordered pizza, laughed about old times, and everything felt normal. But as the evening wore on, I started hearing things. At first it was just faint noises from the kitchen, a soft scraping sound like someone was dragging a chair across the floor. I didn't think much of it. Old houses make noises, right? I mentioned it to my friend, and he just shrugged it off. It's probably just the pipes, he said, or the neighbors. These walls are thin. I tried to believe him, but the sounds didn't stop. Every now and then there'd be a light tapping from upstairs, like someone was walking around in the attic. Again, he dismissed it. Rats, maybe, or just the wind. But the attic was supposed to be locked up, and the tapping had a rhythm to it that didn't sound random. Around midnight his friends left, and the house got quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where you notice every little sound, and your ears start playing tricks on you. We were both tired, so we said goodnight, and I headed to the storeroom. I remember lying down on that mattress, staring up at the ceiling in the dark, and feeling this weird sense of dread creeping in. The air in the room was still and heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I must have drifted off at some point, but I was jolted awake by a loud crash from the kitchen. My heart was pounding right away. I sat up, listening, but everything was silent again. I told myself it was probably just a dish falling or something, but then I heard it. A low, guttural whisper, so faint I almost missed it. It sounded like it was coming from right outside the door. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't want to move, but I needed to check if my friend had heard it too. I crept out of the room and into the hallway. The kitchen door was slightly ajar, and I could see a sliver of light from under it. I pushed it open slowly, and there was my friend, standing by the sink, looking confused. He turned to me and asked, "Did you break that vase?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were wide. I looked where he was pointing, and on the floor, near the counter, was a shattered vase. It was one of those ceramic ones with a floral pattern, and it was in pieces, water and flowers scattered everywhere. I hadn't been anywhere near the kitchen since we said goodnight, and I told him so. He just shook his head and said it must have fallen on its own. But the way he said it, it was like he didn't believe it himself. The vase had been on the middle of the table, not near the edge. There was no draught, no reason for it to just fall. We cleaned it up together, not saying much. The whole time I felt like we were being watched. The air in the kitchen was cold, colder than the rest of the house, and I kept glancing over my shoulder. After we finished, I went to the bathroom to wash my hands. That's when things got really bad. The bathroom was small, with an old, foggy mirror above the sink. I was staring at my reflection, trying to calm down, when I saw something move behind me. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, but then it solidified into this large, dark figure. It was tall, way taller than a person should be, and it had no distinct features, just a black, human-like shape standing right behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs, but there was nothing there. The room was empty. I looked back at the mirror, and it was gone, but the image was burned into my mind. I felt this cold sweat break out all over my body, and my hands were trembling so bad I could barely turn off the tap. I rushed out of the bathroom and found my friend in the living room. He was sitting on the couch, looking pale. Before I could say anything, his son came down the stairs. He's about 6 years old, usually cheerful, but now he looked scared. He pointed toward the kitchen and said, "I saw another uncle in there." My friend and I just stared at each other. There was no one else in the house. My friend tried to brush it off, saying he has nightmares sometimes, but the kid was insistent. He was tall and dark, he said, and that sent a chill down my spine because it matched what I'd seen in the mirror. My friend still didn't want to admit anything was wrong. He kept saying it was all in our heads, that old houses have quirks. But then, from the kitchen, we heard a loud clattering sound. We both jumped up and ran in there. Utensils, forks, knives, spoons were flying off the counter and landing in the living room, like someone was throwing them. Not just dropping them, but hurling them with force. One of the knives embedded itself in the wall near the couch. We stood there, frozen, watching as another spoon clattered to the floor. The air felt electric, charged with something I can't describe. It wasn't just fear, it was this deep, primal terror that made my stomach twist. That's when I lost it. I grabbed my friend by the arm and said, "We need to get help. Now." He finally seemed to snap out of his denial. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone, but then he stopped and looked at me. "There's something I haven't told you," he said. He started explaining that the house had been in his family for generations. His great-great-grandfather owned it, and he was murdered here when he was 29. No one ever found out who did it, but the story goes that he was killed in this very house, and some people think his spirit never left. Hearing that, everything clicked into place. The noises, the figure, the utensils, it all made a horrible kind of sense. We were both terrified, standing there in the living room with utensils still scattered on the floor and this heavy silence hanging over us. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We just sat in the living room with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. The tapping from the attic started up again, louder this time, and once I swear I heard footsteps on the stairs. We talked about calling someone, a priest maybe, or a paranormal investigator, but we were too scared to even move. The fear was so thick you could taste it, like metal in your mouth. When the sun finally started to rise, it felt like a relief, but also like we'd just survived something we couldn't explain. I left later that morning, and I haven't been back since. My friend is still there as far as I know, but he's talking about moving out. I can't shake the feeling that whatever was in that house isn't done with us. Every time I close my eyes, I see that dark figure in the mirror, and I remember the sound of those utensils hitting the floor. It's been weeks, but it feels like it just happened yesterday. I don't know what it was, and I don't think I ever will. All I know is that I've never been so scared in my life, and I hope to God I never feel that way again. Story 3. I drove an old Ford Taurus, a real beater, but it was reliable. The heater worked about half the time, which was a problem in a Wyoming winter, but this was early fall, so it was just cold, not freezing. The air had that bite to it, the kind that tells you summer's really over. I remember pulling out of the parking lot, the streetlights of Cheyenne making everything look orange and safe. I got on the interstate heading north, and pretty soon the city lights were just aglow in my rearview mirror, and then they were gone. That stretch of I-25 between Cheyenne and Wheatland is something else at night. It's not just dark, it's a deep, empty kind of dark. There are long stretches where there are no lights at all, no houses, no nothing. Just the black outline of the prairie against a slightly less black sky. Your headlights are the only thing cutting through it, and they just make a little tunnel you're driving through, with all that immense darkness pressing in from every side. The rumble strips on the shoulder are there for a reason. It's easy to get hypnotized by the road. I had my radio on, some classic rock station from Casper that would get staticky and fade in and out. I was just driving, my mind wandering, thinking about the patients I'd helped that day, about what I might eat when I got home, about nothing important. The dashboard clock glowed a soft green. It was probably around 10:30. I was coming up on the area near Chugwater. You know you're getting close when you see the exit signs. It's not a town you really see from the interstate. It's just a name on a sign and a road leading off into the darkness. The land out there is old. You can feel it. It's not like driving through farmland or suburbs. It's just ancient rolling prairie. I knew a little about the history. I'd read a sign once at a rest stop about how the name Chugwater came from the sound buffalo made when they were driven over the cliffs by Native Americans a long, long time ago. Chug, from the sound they made hitting the water below. That thought always stuck with me. How a whole town's name came from something so violent and final that happened right there. So I'm driving and everything is normal. My hands are at 10 and 2 on the wheel. I may be going 5 over the speed limit. The prairie to my right is just a wall of black. Then, out of that black, something moved. It didn't come from the road. It came from the prairie itself, from the right side, and it moved so fast